Hello, listeners, and welcome to the 33rd episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and this episode I'm joined by...
Duncan.
John.
Jamie.
Kyle?
Yes, Kyle, our
Question mark?
special guest joining us for this episode. We're glad to have you with us. It's been a couple weeks since we last met up. What's everybody been up to? John, you're typically first to get us started.
To say that I painted a lot of terrain is probably an understatement. In fact, I think I gave myself some type of repetitive stress injury in my shoulder because I've been spending the whole week on my couch painting terrain, and then I slept funny and basically spent half the day today trying to smoke a brisket and ended up smoking the smoker instead when it exploded and caught fire. And
that might be overdone.
Yeah, I did. I called it speed cooking because one half of the brisket got finished because it was left inside the fire, and the other one fell out, and then I finished it in the stove. But yeah, I've been working on a lot of terrain. All of the platforms for the ash wastes have been silvered. A lot of the scatter terrain and still has been a bunch of spot colors and stuff done. Lucas, sometimes co-host, was nice enough to come over last weekend for Saturday, help me paint some stuff. Treated him to some burgers, and then not this coming weekend, but next weekend on the 4th, a bunch of the other Dallas guys are going to come over, and we're all going to start painting terrain and building scatter terrain and stuff. So looks like I'm probably going to be well finished for Adepticon, but I'm still full steam ahead on terrain. Today I was able to get all the medals down on the single story hab blocks. I've got other stuff to go for other colors that are on these hab blocks. But yeah, it's coming along. I will kick it off to you. What have you been doing?
Oh my goodness. So I hosted an event on February 11th. We ended up getting about 12 people to turn out. Ended up being a great event. We were very fortunate. Ended up being able to give away a Kratos as part of our prize for the day. That was pretty exciting for a lot of guys who, especially a number of our guys who were just like, man, can we go to fewer prize draws? So keep in mind, I'm coming from Ryan's event structure where he made sure that everybody who showed up to an event left with something.
Yep.
And we got a number of people, Duncan included, who had said, man, I've kind of got everything I want for an army, and picking up odds and ends doesn't immediately start another army project. Can we get fewer, higher quality prize payouts, basically, rather than everybody leaving with something, whether that's shoulder pads or character bits or even just trooper bits? Is that something that we can do? And so that led to able to put a Kratos. So that was pretty special. Unfortunately, that is kind of the high point. A lot of low points on my end. For those who have been unaware, or if I haven't said it out loud on the show, 2023 has not been shaping up to be a great year for me. I have a leaky roof that needs replaced. I have a garage door that is ripping itself apart that needs replaced. I had a sewage backup this year. I found out that my washing machine is no longer agitating correctly, so that's got to go. My car had an impact bubble on one of the tires, so needed a new set of tires. Unfortunately, I was able to find out, again with Duncan's help, that the Thousand Sons army that I've been chasing off and on since 2018, or at least chasing in earnest in the run-up to the Michigan GT, is not really functional. So in and among everything else that I'm working with, that I'm dealing with here, kind of not great.
I would like to point out that we did in fact get a game in, which we both have wanted to do for a while.
Yes.
So that was a high point.
Yeah, you and I had not rolled dice as far as either of us could fathom since about 2017, before the barn went up and when we were still throwing dice in Ryan's basement.
Indeed. And I still feel kind of like poop for how fast our game went this past Saturday.
To give y'all context, our game was over at the bottom of turn 1.
Oof.
Wow.
The only things that I had left on the table were 2 Charybdis, 2 Dreadnought drop pods, 2 drop pods, and 2 tacticals with Shredder bolters, because thousands. really, yeah.
Now, let's preface that, because there is one thing that does need to be paid attention to, and that is the fact that you dropped everything really danger close to everything I have,
Yes, that's correct.
and I have an assault-based army that pretty much doesn't do any shooting and pretty much just goes full bore hand-to-hand combat.
Not a bunch of interceptor last cannons or anything like that.
No, but that was
No.
actually the first game I got to play with the Thousand Suns was into intercepting BS6 Tyrant of Lasat Lascan. It turns out that the list is not choppy enough, an enemy choppy list, and not shooty enough to, or I'm sorry, it's not choppy enough to chop down an enemy shooting list. It's not shooty enough to outshoot a choppy list before it gets there. So I'm not really sure where that leaves me, other than a very real or very distinct possibility. As encouraged by others in my life to take a hard step back, probably for the duration of hosting at least one event, if not longer, just to get my bearings and figure out where I want to go. It's been a problem that's probably a long time brewing with Heresy, or at least the new edition of Heresy for me. But to see it come to the head the way it did after some of the time and money sunk, and with everything else going on in life, it's a lot to handle. It's not the best hand I've ever been dealt, but the way out is through.
A wee bit of a kick in the Johnson, as it were,
Um,
for the whole of
yes,
2023.
yes, that is a very, very mild and polite way to state that.
Definitely been there. That's kind of why I'm so focused on terrain recently. Is just because I can't. My brain does not seem to want to work on 2.0. And honestly, as far as next projects are concerned, post Adepticon, I'm probably going to donate some time to Jamie to help with our future raffles. And honestly, one of my other projects is going to be Gundam. I think I'm going to step away from Heresy minis in general for a little bit and try to figure out some of the other hobby projects that have been taking up time in my work area. I've also got some long range shooting stuff I've kind of wanted to get into. And in Texas, there's only about 2 months of the year where you can actually go outside and do that type of thing. And so I want to use the time that I've.
Yeah, understandably. I know you were lamenting. Was that a Zaku model that you were trying to get your hands on that looked like it had some desert camo going on, or?
Yeah, there was the Conqueror's Doan Gundam movie had a special like Zaku operator that was really cool that came out that on P Bandai's website that sold out in like 5 minutes. It seems that GW isn't the only hobby I have that seems to sell it immediately online. But
they probably use the same web.
oh yeah, it was immediately crashed and gone. Yeah.
So that web host also runs the Adepticon's registration, right?
Yeah.
I've got some other Zaku's that I've got. They actually made a kit of one of the custom Zaku's that got me into Gundam in general. I bought a book when I was very young, and it had this like custom politician mobile suit, and so they actually made a kit of it finally. And I've got that kit and a bunch of aftermarket thrusters and parts and stuff like that. So I want to do a nice candy coat job and then light it up and kind of go the whole 9 yards on it.
Well, I guess I'll go next. How about that? Or do you
Sure.
want to go next, Duncan?
No, I'll round it out at the end.
Much like Jacob, I've had an awesome 2023. Let's just put it that way. I'm not going to elaborate because I don't want to drive off the few listeners that we have. But I've been working on, again, I'm still working on the Inner Circle Knights because I have discovered that the Inner Circle Knights have as much detail on them as a lion. And of course, I decided to build 10 of them at one time. So like each mini is literally like 10 to 15 hours of painting. It's ridiculous because of all the layers and stuff trying to get them to look, comparable to the line that I've done. They're looking really good. I've had a lot of good feedback on especially their capes and tunics that they have all on them. They're all flowy and stuff. People are really liking them, what I've shown them so far. I also spent some time on my one day, well, I wouldn't call it off because I had to take my son for some testing. But I went around trying to round up, see if I could get that Soul Shackle GW set. And of course, sold out every place and nobody had any extra pre-order slots, which is, that's another problem that we probably should talk about is the allotment system right now for new releases for GW is absolutely just maddening.
No.
I think I would have an aneurysm talking about it right now. I know Duncan and I know Mike, who's been on several times before, because he does. I think the ordering for one of his stores is just and it's just crazy. And just talking with the people I know in the industry, it's pretty crazy too. I honestly don't know. I mean, I could elaborate, but the long and short of it is I just don't understand the releasing new stuff without the capacity to release new stuff. Let's just put it that
You
way.
remember
Like
when
they don't
when
have
the
the
Rhino?
stock.
You remember when the Rhino dropped and there was like pictures in White Dwarf of the production line? It was
Yeah.
like the 2 or 3 months before. There was like, we're working on a thing. It's going to be the biggest release inside of Terra's, crazy history. And then next issue was all the boxes folded, and then finally the issue where the Rhino itself dropped. They had pictures of a warehouse, a literal warehouse full of Rhino. And now, I'm sorry, but you can't have more than 3 boxes of jet bikes for your 55 Heresy playing customer.
Yeah, I know. Like my nearest friendly local game store, they had orders for. They don't have a big Heresy crowd, but they have a decent crew. They had orders for at that one store, like 45 boxes of jet bikes, and they got one. That's all they were allowed to order from the allotment. One.
My friendly local got one.
Yep.
This is the same friendly local that's been a GW retailer, a huge source for income for GW for almost 30 plus years.
Oh yeah,
I've been going there at least this long, and the store's been open for almost 44 years now.
This
I mean, they've been around forever.
This friendly local game shop that I'm talking about on a weekly basis. They order between $500 and $750 of GW paint alone. That's not models. That's just paints. Yep. Like they turn that much GW paint. So like their orders are big.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
Yes.
Because it's just depressing. I got my plane ticket for Adepticon, so like I'm locked in. I don't have an army to play, but I'm coming because I just don't think I'm gonna be able to get enough stuff done. I could bring my Night Lords, but it's of course like Jacob. My Night Lord army from 1.0 is Terror Squads in drop pods. Well, actually not drop pods because that would actually be good. They're Terror Squads in Dreadclaw.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I could actually do a zone army out of it. I got enough stuff that I could do that, like Night Raptors and stuff like that. But of course, you can't use the jump pack.
I can bring you an army, World Leaders or Sons of Horus or Iron Warriors with lots of heavy weapons, and enough of the quad mortars to make certain you never have a friend again if you need me to. I've only got 12 of them right now, but if you need them,
only 12.
Only 12.
I may take you up on that. I'll talk to you offline about it.
Sounds like a plan.
But yeah, I'm going to be at Adepticon, and if anybody comes to the Heresy area, I'll probably be really just plastered. I'm just going to be honest. Either that or meat coma. How about that?
Meat coma, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. And what my friend Johnny is going to, and it's his first time at Adepticon. He's tried to go several times, but just with his business, he hasn't been able. Anyways, I will pass it on to you, Duncan. How about that?
Sounds like a plan. Well, let me see here. Hobby-wise, I have the past 2 weeks, since we didn't record during the Super Bowl weekend, I have gotten 10 jump reavers almost to the completion stage. I need to seal, apply decals, weathering, and do their bases. I've got 3 more reavers to the exact same point. I've got my entire chieftain squad. 7 of them are done. I finished the banner guy. Sorry, 6 of them are done. I finished the banner guy and his banner. And I've got 3 other guys who need to be fixed with decals, steel, and weathering as well, and then their bases. I've got another Praetor that I'm working on for them. He is almost done. I've got another Dread, another Contemptor for them. I'm almost done with that. Pretty much all these guys are at the exact same point. They need seals, a few final touch-ups, then weathering, decals, and bases. I assembled about half of a Alpha Legion army for my buddy Corin that we took up to the Battle Barn for the event that Jacob ran. Corin got to play a game there. He wasn't feeling all the well, but he did get to have 1 game. Thank you, Lemmy. And then I got a game with Jacob in. And then I got a game in with Lemmy, and I discovered exactly how unpleasant one specific squad that Lemmy has truly is. That being 9-ish jet bike guys, all with Volkites, plus a Tech Marine, all in Iron Hands, because, 45 heavy Volkite shots that all hit on 2s. In an army that doesn't have a lot of transportation, let's be honest here, it kind of chewed through and ate a lot of guys. But it was a very, very bloody game between he and I. It ended up he had 3 Thalics left, a Contemptor left with one wound, and I had a Land Raider with 1 hull point gone, and that was it. And that was the end of turn 6, and it was a great fun game. Lots of blood, everything died, and died wonderfully. The highlight of that game for me was my Chieftain squad with attached Praetor getting broken and run down by a Leviathan, because oh well, it happens. And I've assembled into sub-assemblies the con for Jamie so that I can get him started up. I'm probably going to focus on him after Adepticon.
Yeah, I forgot. So sorry
Make mention of that.
Yeah, I was going to make mention of it. So we ran some polls on our Facebook page, and we're looking to do two armies for our Toys for Tots charity that we try to do, or at least I try to do. And by far the army that got the most votes was the White Scars, and then Dark Angels actually got the second most votes by 1 vote over Word Bearers. But we decided, since we were going to kind of have maybe an official traitor legion instead of just a supposed traitor legion, and the White Scars, we decided to do Word Bearers and White Scars this year. So as Duncan has said, he's going to donate a con to the White Scars force. But if anybody would like to send in some lists that are for the army, we're trying to shoot for, let's say, 2,500 points to 3,000 points. And then something to factor in might be like that are semi-affordable. So like if you do White Scars list, I know everybody wants bikes and jet bikes. Just be mindful that unless you're actually donating a lot of the bikes and jet bikes, that they're expensive. So not to say that we're not going to do a fluffy White Scars list, but if you do want to chip in, we'll be more than happy to take donations for either of models or painters. We're looking for painters, and also if you just want to donate cash so that we can buy models for said list, and if you want to send us lists, and please do that as well. But
I would tell you to hit up Ned. Dude has been really enthusiastic to talk about White Scars edition.
Okay. Sure. Well, but I still want to get other, people involved too. So like if anybody wants to send them in, just hit us up on the Facebook page, or can't remember. I'll put my email up for y'all if people want to email me, or if they have donations or anything they want to pledge, I'd be more than happy to take it. But so next year though, we're talking about doing something crazy after we get these 2 armies done, since the Dark Angels kind of came in second. We were talking about doing a Dark Angels versus Dark Angels armies, or Dark Angels versus Alpha Legion, and you really have to pick which Legion is actually the Trigger Legion. That could be fun too. Sorry, Duncan.
It's all good. I'm glad that we segued to that for a second, because I want to say, so the reason I actually have a con model is because I have toyed. Okay, so obviously I have primarily trader armies. I mean, I've got Iron Warriors. In essence, I've got 2 Sons of Horus armies now. I've got 1.5 armies of World Eaters, 1 painted, 1 not, but mostly assembled. I've got an Alpha Legion army I'm doing for Corrin. I've got a Night Lord's army that I haven't touched yet. But I only have a Blood Angel army as a Loyalist army. And the Blood Angel army doesn't work very well in 2nd edition.
Is it Dreadclaws? Does it have Dreadclaws?
There may be some Dreadclaws involved. There also might be multiple small squads of jet bikes involved that are now absolutely armed in a way that does not make sense. And the Jump Marines are also now armed in ways that don't make sense either. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I figured I'd get when I get done with the the guys I'm working on right now, the Sons of Horus, and I take them to Adepticon, I'm going to kind of fiddle around with the Alpha Legion for Corrin while also redoing or doing the new guys for my World Leaders. But I figured after doing that, I might want to start on doing a Loyalist army. And I said, well, what have I not done? What have I not really had a lot of interest in? And I said, ooh, White Scars, they look different. And so I acquired a Khan model, and I acquired 2 other White Scars models, but I can't remember what they were. I think they're the Praetor characters. And I figured, hey, I might want to try these, see if I can paint 1 or 2 of them up, see how they look. So during dead time, I put most of the con together thinking, I'll do this. And then the poll dropped, and I said, ooh, I can put a lot of effort into this because I know how to paint white fairly decently and see how she looks. And that's kind of why I had the con. I have, thankfully, not had the same problem that Jamie and Jacob and John have had with this edition. My Sons of Horus work. They do
very well.
I wouldn't say very well. There's definitely glaring weaknesses with the list.
I'm willing to bet, from what I remember about your Iron Hands, though, I don't think they'll have any problem.
They're definitely a spear point list, if that makes any sense, or a spear tip list.
Yeah,
but and they do work in what they are designed to do. But yeah, I didn't even think they would be this good.
They are. From what I remember from your list and how you played it, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I'm not having any problems with them. I'm having a lot of fun because it's very mono-focused, just like my old Iron Warriors list. But it's fun, unlike my old Iron Warriors list. But that's really all the modeling I've done, or hobby stuff I've done.
Make sure you hand off to Kyle. We don't want to leave him out.
I was thinking there was something. And I follow Meta Miniatures on Facebook, and before, when I was planning on doing this army for Corrin, I was looking at a lot of translucent paints and Tamiya clear red and clear blue and clear green, and following Matt Kane's methods for doing that entire army. But I've been following Meta's Miniatures, and they posted a thing using Army Painter speed paints, since they're fairly translucent as well, that looked like a really, really nice way of doing Alpha Legion. So yesterday, I hit that same friendly local game store, who only got 1 box of jet bikes in, and I dropped money and got the entire paint range of stuff I would need to do that army up, so that I can see how it works, see if I like it, see if Corrin likes it, and if so, go beyond just painting a couple tactical marines like that and do that for the army, because it's honestly a lot easier looking to do than the way that Matt Kane did. Not knocking Matt's method. I'd follow Matt's method on my Sons of Horus, on my World Eaters, and I love those methods. But this one just looks a lot less involved for a similar quality appearance. So kudos to Meta's Miniatures. And that's all I've got, folks. So Kyle, introduce thyself and tell us about your hobbying stuff.
Well, I've coming up this summer, I've been in the hobby, 40K related Games Workshop hobby, for 34 years now, since I was 10. And I know some of you guys may remember, and I know a couple Buddhas are in here, obviously from the old days. I used to be on 40K radio a decade, 13 years ago, a long time ago. I can't even remember. And I've met like John at, like he mentioned, BullsCon, or was it Warzone or whatever it was, which that was like 2010, stuff like that.
There was the big WoW where you, me, and Jamie hung out, and then you were coming to BullsCon on behalf of the foam.
The foam peddlers. Then the same thing with Adepticon a couple times, and then let's see, DualCon. Remember that?
Oh yeah, don't forget DualCon. Yeah, that was here in Arizona. The Deuce is loose.
Yep, the Deuce is loose.
And then I've just been in the hobby a long time. Pretty much switched. If people can remember, if they're listening, if there's anyone out there, back when Rick and I, who's now my neighbor who owns a house 2 doors down from me, it was probably towards the end when I was on 40K radio. He and I pretty heavily had been switching to 30K when 30K came out. We had been doing a lot of content, and then I was kind of fired from the show back in the day because I got in trouble with one of our foam licenses with Privateer Press. So I had to step down there because of that. But yeah, and then I don't know, I've just been in the hobby a lot of time. I went to LVO, which we're going to talk about for, I think this is third year in a row, or third time in a row. Skipped the COVID year because that wasn't run during that time. I built and I helped a buddy paint his iron hands to get ready for it. He kind of contracted me out, and that like cost me my eyes because about like a week ago, all of a sudden I can't see. Like you asked me to read anything across the street, I could read it, not a problem. All of a sudden, anything that's close. So I'm gonna go get my eyes checked out on Tuesday. I have a appointment, but besides that, I've been building and kind of prepping for next year's LVO. So me and a bunch of buddies, I had a big group. I finally got my gaming group to like go with me, which was cool. We had like 11 people there, and we decided we're going to do Dark Angels this next year. So we're all like doing a wing, and kind of building towards that. So I've been kind of prepping some of that stuff, kind of finishing off some Iron Warrior, Terminator, Pride of the Legion Army list I'm working on. But not like very much painting just because right now I can't. I got some readers and stuff like an old man, but besides that, haven't really been hobbing too much.
Oh, don't sell yourself short.
Oh, well, I was joking with my buddy with the Iron Hands, literally like it's the whole Thanos meme. What did it cost you? At my eyesight. Because literally I started in December. I mean, if I had to listen for me, it's crazy. But for his Iron Hands army, I painted like 3 predators, 3 Sicarans, 5 rhinos. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was probably like 4,000 points worth of stuff. And he had purchased the Iron Hand army for me, so it all matched and everything. But I was doing all kinds of comp because he kept switching his list at the last second. Like, oh, maybe I'll add this in, and maybe, oh no, I'm going to use destroyers. So then I'm painting destroyers and bouncing here and there. So it just cost me my eyes, but hopefully I can get that remedy because I was a little sad panda when I couldn't see up close, and you kind of go through like, oh well, what am I going to do with all these miniatures sitting in my closet now? Like I can't complete them, but
Now,
it's just
go ahead. I was gonna say, like, do you still have like? I know that you and Rick were pretty hardcore with like the amount of armies that y'all had. Like, you almost had like one of every army. It seemed like.
Oh, we're that ridiculous still, easily. I mean, so part of me leaving 30K or 40K radio at the time too was my daughter was born, and I just didn't have time. I mean that happened too. So what I did a lot of, I did a lot of Battlefront games. So I had, Team Yankee and, Flames of War and, a bunch of other stuff. I had historicals. I was like, look, my time is vastly decreased.
Yep.
So I'm going to pare stuff down. I mean, I had fantasy armies and everything. So I got rid of all that stuff because I wasn't really a big fan of AOS when it came out. But I kept basically everything for Undead Army when fantasy finally comes out in the old world from Forge World at some point. But I basically pared everything down, and I mean, I went from having 10, 12, 40K armies down to 1, right? Because I haven't, to be honest with you, I could probably count maybe to 20 times since Heresy First Edition came out when I played 40K. Now I bought like when 8th came out, I bought it. I still buy those things because I love 40K. That's what I've always loved. But just I've been strictly Heresy. I mean, for me right now, I have so many armies. It's ridiculous. Probably one of every, but even sometimes I have multiples of legions, just different fighting styles.
Right.
And I want to keep them different.
Well, you'll build something out, and then instead of like taking parts from one army, you'll have like a whole other army just ready to go, like the swap out or something like that of the same legion.
Yeah, because what I did last year, not this last one, the one before for LVO, I wanted to do a Raven Guard Pride of the Legion list, which I did. And some of the things have changed in it, right? So I built and paint 3,000 points of that. Had that and had a great time, did really well with it at LVO because it was so different and people just didn't see anything like that before. And it's got a lot of good boosts in 2.0, but I haven't really used it since 2.0 came out. And then for this one, I actually took a word bearer serrated sun drop list, which I had painted during COVID. So kind of rewind just a little bit. Like back during COVID, everyone was on lockdown and everything, and I had just finished my master's degree, and I hadn't really hobbied in like 2 years. And I'm like, and we're locked in, and I went insane, like crazy. Like I painted a Death Guard army, and we're talking 4,000 or 5,000 points of each, like Death Guard, Word Bearers, a Black Shield army, Alpha Legion, Custodes. Like I painted a ton of stuff because we couldn't do anything. My son has asthma, so we were like extra cautious, so we didn't really go out. And then I've just been kind of adding armies since then, of things I want to do. But what I try to do is when I have my armies, I try to make them different. Like, because I don't want to be like, well, I just did this with Sons of Horus, and now I'm going to do it with Ultramarines, for example, right? Like if I did a tank list or something, I want them to be different. So when I play them, it's a different style. It's a different feel. But yeah, Rick and I have Rick's even worse now. Like if I took a picture of his garage, you guys would cry. You'd probably think it's awesome, but you always cry how much stuff he has. He's living the dream. He's a bachelor.
Well, he's a bachelor. He's
kids.
A bachelor. And he's finally got a good job too.
Yep, and that's it. So I mean, it's funny if I need something. I'm like, hey, using the jet bike for example, some other releases. We'll buy some. Like, hey, I need a Predator. So he's like, I got it. I'm like, all right, I'll Venmo you the money or whatever. Or if I need paints and vice versa, we come back because we just collect. That's one of our main personal hobbies too.
I know he was going crazy when I was getting the leaks for the 2.0 rules. He was like, you can find me this and you got to find me that and send it to Kyle too. I'm like, okay.
Rick hasn't, if anyone remembers back from 40K, Rick hasn't changed.
Yeah.
He like overreacts over everything. And then it's like you always got to pull him back from the edge. So it's kind of funny. But he hasn't changed an ounce. And then you also mentioned kind of the foam. So I've been able to lasso Romeo to coming back in and playing in our group because he had gotten like lost in the sauce with golf. So It was like good. So it's like a lot of those old relationships are still in contact. We're still playing games. Romeo stopped by we have a local store that we play at, Old World Games in Scottsdale, which has a really good heresy community. And he just popped in because he was out doing stuff, but he's played, a few times. I got him back in about October-ish. Got him back playing. So yeah, that's just kind of a little bit. I mean, when it comes to armies, we have a ridiculous amount, but I think we try to make them different and do different things. I love Terminator, so I'll always have some kind of form of Pride of Legion of whatever Legion, and then I go in and I add on to it or build a little bit different.
So that being said, you said that you've gone the past, 3 times because of so not 3 consecutive years, but the past 3 times to LVO. Since 2.0 has come out, would you say that you've seen a lot more interest in heresy?
Oh yeah, by far. So you had, I guess we've all kind of gone it through. You have kind of that like you're like the Monopoly guy playing at a store, right? When Heresy first came out, you got the little cigarette smoker. You're like, yeah, we play our miniatures and we're worth millions of dollars because we can afford these armies. Obviously, with like Calf came out, that kind of changed it a little bit.
It let the commons into the hobby. What are you talking about, man?
Or when like Rick and I always joke, the poors are able to play now, right? It's all joking. Yeah, it's all joking. But
yeah, because the plastics are really cheap, in exchange for the Forge World to start with.
And we had a good so at the store we were playing, we already had a good community, right? Of like 10 to 12 strong players, right? That would have multiple, and we're not counting, like, I didn't even mention like Chad Chiller. He used to go on 40K radio too. Yep. He's a madman. Like, he's like, just like Rick and I, but he paints like,
yeah, I was going to say, I remember he painted like crazy.
Yeah, he has like 8,000 points of Dark Angel. Like every combo you can have, he has like 6,000 points of Blood Angels. So we had like people when they were watching us play, like, yeah, occasionally we'd have like unpainted armies, but usually it's painted armies on the table. So it built a really good, and here in Arizona, Phoenix area, like we're in the East Valley, but it kind of became like a beacon. So most of the Heresy players went there. And then because we did stuff in cooperation with the store, I did a lot of events to kind of lead up and campaigns to lead up to get people in, like using the old Centurion rules and, having people come in and play. And so we slowly built it. So when it dropped, we had crazy, like, we did like, it was like a whole day. I told the wife, I was like, look, this thing's coming out. We're going to sit down and like, I'm spending the whole day there. That's just how it's going to be. Because I'm pretty chill. I don't really ask for anything, but when I'm like, hey, this is important, I want to do that, she's like, yeah, no problem, you got it. And we literally like they opened up an hour early so all the heresy people could come and purchase some stuff, and then we stayed there all day, and it was literally like build a Praetor. Now we're going to be doing a big Praetor combat, and like so everyone picked like a Praetor out and a Legion, and it was kind of goofy because we're still trying to like, wait, I got to do this because of the new rule, they might have something special. And then we capped it off with like a mega battle at the end, but then it was like, all right, we're going to do a Dreadnought Arena. So everyone built a Contemptor and stuff like that. So the community's been great. Probably I would say consistently on Fridays, we're probably like the 12 to maybe 20. Some weekends are bigger than or Fridays are bigger than others. But it's not always like the same people every time. So even if it's 12, it might be 7 from the same last week and 5 different people. But yeah, it's been great. I mean, like you mentioned, it's some of these vehicles, some of these things that had come out in resin were, $120, $130, and you're getting for $100 or $80. It can't beat that. And it's
like
plastic.
The Spartans were like 220 or something like
that. Yeah,
they
were ridiculous.
Yeah. So, and they're like, now they're prior to the price increase, I think they were 105 or 115.
Yeah, I think they're like 12 or something like that. Yeah, somewhere in that
range. But yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, people, if you haven't heard, and I don't know when this show's coming out, there's a GW price increase, and like all the Heresy plastic kits are getting like hammered. Like they're not going up 6%, they're going up like somewhere. The Whirlwind and the Kratos were like $40, or the Kratos was like going up almost like $30 to $40. So Whirlwind was crazy. It was going up, I think it was like $15 to $20.
Good, they'll be in less hands. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure. But that's I mean, Heresy players are going to play Heresy, but just if you all want the cheaper prices, now's the time to get in it. So
speaking as someone who's been playing Heresy since first edition and even before first edition came out, I think that I can find a way to survive.
Yeah, same here.
Yep. I mean, that was the big thing too. Like when it all came, it's like, oh, this is cool. It's all plastic, but I have this all in resin. Like, you guys probably know the same thing. You're like, oh, it's cool that these new plastic jet bikes are coming out, but I have 9 resin ones sitting here that I haven't built yet, and it's like, it's too late for me even to throw them on eBay to try to sell them, because it's like, oh, well,
The pile of shame, it's always growing.
You probably still could sell them because nobody can get the plastic ones at this point. So, and who knows when they come back in stock, because like the Rhinos and the Mark 3s and 4s, when they actually came out, like it was like 3 months before you could actually buy them. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I was gonna say, as like a Heresy group, we were pretty lax, like, because we were trying, like, if we would kind of vet people too, right? Because we're like, oh, this is a cool dude who plays like 40K, or we have ladies that play too, but it was like, this is a cool person, let's get them in. So like we would have people with like regular Rhinos, right? The other ones, because I mean, technically you can say
Mars
it came from
pattern.
that border. Yeah, it's Mars pattern. So we are a little lenient on that. Yeah, and I think that's what helped our area kind of expand, is because we weren't like, I don't want to call it gatekeeper. Yeah, because I don't like the term gatekeeper, because, Rick and I will talk about it all the time. We like standards. Having standards are a good thing. If that was the case, just throw Lego models and tiddlywinks out there, right? I mean, but as long as they're painting it and it's looking good and they're a cool person, we were kind of inviting them into the group. But yeah, I mean, as an area, we have a fair amount of stores and a couple of good GW stores. But drawing it was pretty easy with all the Heresy stuff. I mean, the box is $300 and you get, a ton of stuff.
So much stuff.
Complain about it.
Yeah. I think
that was it's kind of like how the Caliph and Prospero boxes were. I mean, they're just a phenomenal deal for getting into Heresy.
And I think that was one of the few things that I saw that wasn't going up on the price increases. That box, I think, was staying the same, which is kind of, that makes it even bigger deal with the other stuff if you buy it out.
And like you mentioned with the Caliph, like, I mean, if you were in the hobby, like first edition when it first dropped, I mean, a tactical squad, 15 man with bolters and their comms and their vexillas, that was 150. You're like, now I got a Cal for 150 deal. Like,
Yeah,
where do I sign up?
Yep.
if you look behind me, like right up in here, behind me in the video, yeah, there's like 4 boxes back here that might be very familiar for some people.
I still have one Prospero and one Calf, and they're up there in the top is an unboxed contents of a Calf and a Prospero. So
I came across 2 shrink wrapped calcs today when I was cleaning up.
Those are big bucks if you put them up on the.
I'm not going to do it because, like most of us, I like that those marks of armor more than the other marks.
Yeah.
And pretty much I will, as I build armies, I will build them through those. And for some reason, my heresy never seemed to change. And I always want to have another army. And Lord knows I've got enough stuff to make one, or 2, or 3, or 4. So, I swear, when I finally am dead, my wife will be able to clear out all my stuff and just there'll be enough to like pretty much outfit 18 legions at that point.
Yeah, I'm scared my wife will end up actually finding out what all I have down here, scrolled away, and then like realize like what was going on.
It's kind of like that old joke of when you die, you're afraid your wife will sell your ex possessions for what you told her they were worth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's okay with it. She actually, like, my wife has actually been to Forge World in the UK with me, and so like she actually knows what all that stuff is and when she would see the boxes show up on my front doorstep, and she's like, "Oh, look, it's a Titan-sized box from Forge World. I know how much that costs." So
my wife is the same. She literally looked at me a long time ago and said, "You're paying the house mortgage. You pay all the household bills. Her money covers whatever she needs, wants. We have all the household expenses covered. If I choose to buy little tiny toy soldiers out of my discretionary funds, I can. Just like my other hobbies. I mean, as long as she has stuff that she wants and she's happy, that's all that matters."
My wedding ring actually is an Aquila, a silver Aquila, because I grew too fat for the wedding ring that I bought when we got married. So my wife has realized, she's like, I don't know which one's going to come first, me or Warhammer, but you can have them both.
My wife, I never wear my ring because I don't want to ruin it, because it's actually a commemorative. When they did the Hobbit movies, I have the one ring that's done in whatever carat gold. They did a numbered 500 of them for release throughout the world, and my wife got me one of those for our wedding ring. So I don't wear it, but I love it. So huge nerd.
Yeah, mine. I have a titanium one that I've actually gotten my hand caught in something when it got hooked. So, and the ring wouldn't rip. It was gonna tear my finger off before I. Yeah. It's like, that's it was an awesome ring. I love it, but like, I almost lost a finger / hand to having it. But
no losing appendages. It makes it harder to hobby.
So, anyways, Kyle, going back to LVO, is there anything you can let it like expand on, like being, like a player? Because like last week we had, was it Alex? Or last show was Alex, and he was the kind of like, I guess, the GM for the heresy side of stuff. And so we're just trying to like get some like player insight on like what you thought of the event, and like, is there anything you'd like to see? Because like we're good friends with Alex, and like I know you probably talked with him some, and I know you. I know me talking with you previously, like you let me know there was a player there from the Birmingham area that I didn't even know played heresy, and so I was actually this week able to track that. Well, I wasn't trying to track him down. I went into a store and I kind of found him. So
there you go. No, Alex is awesome. Like Alex and Craig, who run it, they are on Death and Betrayal podcast. Last year is funny because he and I talked a lot, because I was one of the familiar faces that he's seen. Because before that, Boys of the Golden Throne ran it. And so Alex has taken a different spin on it. He's dived really heavy into the narrative. I would say before these last 2 LVOs, it was more of a competitive feel.
Yep.
Not like not like competitive above everything else, but definitely harder lists, right, that you would encounter.
Right.
Alex took it more themed. So 2 years ago, and I thought it was an awesome idea, but I guess some players got poopy pantsed about it. So 2 years ago, I went with me and like 6 other buddies. The other 5 guys went and played 40K, right? I was in the Heresy room playing in there. And he ran an event, like you got a little dossier that had all your missions, and it started. You had a 2,000 points on the first day, and then you had on the second day 3,000 point armies, but the 2,000 had to carry into the 3,000. There was like no special characters and stuff because that was all saved for like the mega battle. So last year, we were kind of doing kind of based off what the boys of the Golden Throne had done because it was like a planet. Like I can't remember what the Bally's planet was because it used to be at Bally's, now it was at Rio. Hopefully it's not Rio anymore. I know that's not Alex's fault, but Rio is just booty. Like
I've never been to Vegas before, so like
okay.
I have people tell me all these things about the hotels, and I'm just like, okay, what
So Rio's off the strip, which isn't a big deal, right? Like if you still want to go to the strip, you're just across the street. You can get an Uber, you can go over, it's not a big deal. Last year, what happened is we were going through the COVID thing, and then whatever that second, I can't remember. I'm blanking on the name. The second wave was coming. So they had like no staff in there, and like almost everything was like closed. And then this year was vastly different. They had a bunch, but it's just Rio's a dated hotel. Caesars owns it. They're not going to spend a lot of money because it's off the strip. You know, they were built back in the 90s. It was the Rio and the Palms. Those were supposed to be like the young, hip, like younger crowd would go and party. They have like tattoo parlors and stuff in there and all that kind of stuff to draw on like the younger crowd. But like people want to be on the strip, period. That's just the way it is.
Are they aren't they a little cheaper than the ones on the strip too, or is that?
It's all comparable. I mean,
Okay.
it's Vegas. Vegas is
Yeah.
going to cost you at the Rio. Margarita is going to cost $18, and on the strip, it's probably going to cost you 19. Right? So, but here's the thing: it's Vegas too. You can go to the liquor store, buy a bunch of beer if you want to have it, alcohol, and then you just can't see it. Rio's a little. Their staff is a little on top of things, right? So if you're bringing like drinks and other stuff like that, they're watching you because they fine the frontline gaming guys.
Oh, that's not cool.
That definitely doesn't work with our groups.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a different vibe. But yeah, I mean, I understand why they were there because Bally's wanted to go a different direction. And to be honest with you, Bally's is on the strip. Bally's ain't that much better, But you can see the growth, especially this year, as opposed when that second COVID thing kicked. That they had, I think, over 1,000 players for the 40K, like 400 players for like AOS. And what was crazy, like you want to talk about the vast difference. So I went the year before. I think there was 36 Heresy players. There was 52 tickets sold, but that a lot of them were Canadians didn't come down because
yeah, they couldn't get through.
Well, no, they didn't want to risk it. Like it was
Okay.
funny. The year before I told Alex, I was like, "Hey, check it out, bro. We live like 4.5 hours away, and if you got like COVID, you could stay at my place, and we'll just figure it out, and then you can fly out of Phoenix." Because for those guys, a lot of them come from Edmonton. It's only a 2.5 hour flight to maybe 3 hours, if that.
Oh, that's crazy.
It's just a straight shot down going south. But to kind of go back to the campaign, so 2 years ago, he ran a really cool narrative where it's good versus bad. But it was funny because I made an offhand mention to my buddy. I was like, yeah, I noticed I got this like Hydra sticker, like stamp at the bottom of my sheet, right? Which I was like, oh, this is kind of weird. And then I would talk to my opponents like, hey, do you have one? They're like, nope. And then another opponent was like, yeah, I got one. And I was like, maybe, it's just like they didn't stamp enough of them or something. Well, at the end of it, the twist is if you had that, you were fighting for the Cabal because you either go traitor or loyalist. And then there was like a third, and I was doing really well in that narrative campaign because the one thing I really like about his Craig and Alex's missions, the way they set it up is there's victory points and then campaign points. Campaign points are way more impactful to the overall narrative of the weekend, right? So you can be like, oh, I won. I did this to win, so I get 3 campaign points. And then if I tie, I get 2 campaign points, and if I lose, I get 1. But there's times where I've lost, but I've scored more campaign points than my opponent.
Gotcha.
Because I stuck to my missions and I did what they did. So the first one that Alex was running, the Cabal won, and we destroyed the planet and all that stuff. But I thought it was hilarious. Like, I just got a good chuckle out of it. I thought it was pretty damn funny, like a little twist. But I guess the players got poopy pants. So like, no, I came to fight for the traitor side. And then what happens is, and here's the thing for me, I'm not a big mega battle guy, and maybe that comes back because when I worked for Games Workshop, we used to have to run them at games days and all this stuff. I'm just, if it's your thing, rock on, rock free. I do not like it, right? So
Did
I
you
don't even
used to be an outrider?
No, I used to run. I worked for GW for almost 9 years.
Oh,
Yeah,
but I did
he ran the that was the LA store.
LA Battle Bunker. Yeah,
Battle Bay
I ran the Arizona Mills. If in California, so LA Battle Bunker, Ontario Mills, and then Arcadia, and then I was like a district manager at the time too. So I like ran a bunch of them. But also at Games Day, I did a lot of stuff. I went to every Games Day because at one point in time I worked under Dave Taylor, who managed all the bunker managers. And like when Apocalypse came out, people can remember that old timey. I had like the old timey. I had like an experimental set of templates.
I gotta insert and just ask here: are we talking the Dave Taylor?
Yeah, the Dave Taylor.
Yeah.
That's a good dude.
So
yeah,
like,
he's amazing.
The funny thing is, like, all my GW contacts, the way I know them, like the and like a lot of them don't work at GW anymore, but like the ones that still do, the way I know them is through Rick and Kyle. Like,
that's so funny because I met Dave Taylor through Cool Mini or Not's Dark Age rather than through anything Games Workshop or Warhammer related. That.
But like, yeah, I mean, like all the trainers that they have like now, or if there's I don't know if he's still there, but like some of the trainers, and then like the guys that go to the new the flex staff that go to the new opening stores, and then stuff like that. I know them all from Kyle. So like we would go to games days, and he'd like we'd go out and eat food with them, or stuff like that. That's how I know them. I mean, it's yeah.
Yeah, I stayed pretty close with almost all of them. Like I have friends that live in the UK that no longer work for Games Workshop or still do work for Games Workshop.
Yep.
Like I lived in Chicago for 3 months when I did a training years ago, made a bunch of managers there. Some of them don't work for GW anymore, some still do. It just, so like when I worked with Dave was in charge of all the bunker managers, which Seattle had a bunker, LA had a bunker, Chicago had one, and then Baltimore had one.
Yep.
And then we would do like plan things out. And because way back in the day when it was a little bit more foresight being had, we would know what the releases were, and then we used to like make up like what the stores would do for promotions, right? And do that. So yeah, worked under him. He was awesome to work with. I can't say a bad thing about the guy. But yeah, he's just a great dude. I mean, that's all I can say, but yeah, that's one of the things why I want to work out at some point, getting maybe Adepticon next year, because I haven't been there in a while. And tough thing is, it's so close to my daughter's birthday, so it's like, like
for me, it's during it's either the week before or the week after my children's spring break. Just with my wife and me working at the hospital, it's kind of like this year was a major deal for me getting off. So yeah, I get it, man.
Yeah.
I know
Vegas is a 4-hour drive away, like that's 4.5 hour drive away.
I know a lot of us, I don't know, we're not going to go to Adepticon next year, but I know a bunch of people are actually talking about going to LVO because a lot of us, at least on this show, and people we know, like either hadn't been and just seemed like a very, very cool event from
Alex,
everything.
So this year, like, I mean, I can't say enough glowing things about Alex and what Craig do. They get it, right? When you're looking at Heresy, just like the Graying Legion guys get it, which I know a bunch of. I used to work with a bunch of all of them at GW. Like Brian, back in the day when you used to run events and do all that stuff, they get it, right? They just know like, hey, it's anyone can just build a like come and trash your list in 40K. It's not that hard, right? We can see what the meta is. This is more, kind of embracing your story, coming up with a cool list, and then going and playing it. And their events follow tightly to a narrative. So this year, which was a little bit different, so they did put some restrictions on lists. Like if you were doing like I forget what the one with the vehicles is called, the armored breakthrough, maybe.
Armored breakthrough, yeah.
Yeah, so many names go through my head. Armor breakthrough, a knights list, the Fury of the Ancients list. But it's weird. So my buddy, I felt so bad. My buddy brought a knight list, but I think what happens is people interpreted it as we're not allowing those lists. So there was only like 3 people that brought those type of lists, and he was geared to fight like other knights because he's like, oh, this is what I'm going to be fighting, right? So I'm going to fight Fury of the Ancients or whatever. So sadly, he got mixed in. They're like, hey, there's just not enough of you, and you paid to this. I'm not going to have you play the same 2-3 guys the whole weekend long. So they kind of got muddled into the middle, and he crushed some people pretty bad, right? But he also lost a game. There was other armies that matched up well against him. It wasn't as bad as he thought it was going to be, but he was like, I'm definitely not bringing knights next year. And his knights list wasn't that crazy. It's just it was geared to fight something very specific and fought something a little bit different. You saw a doubling of people playing there because I don't have the exact number on it. It was somewhere in the 70s, of actually playing. And I like how they do. I like how Alex does it. Before, when there was only like 30 of us, you used to have this challenge coin. You'd put your name on it. He'd pull it out and just randomly do it. But it was a lot easier. He'd basically say, because it was equal, right? He's like, all you Imperials on the left, traders on the right, and just start pairing off, right? Just pairing off, which was cool. People could have gamed it a little bit if they go, oh, that guy has a Alpha Legion army and I want to play him. They can kind of do that, or buddies wanted to play each other, they can do that. I tried not to play anyone that I knew because I was like, I could have stayed home and played you. I come here to play, different people. But the way they set it up is the first day you had 3 missions you could pick from, and you couldn't repeat that mission. So it's right out of the rule book. And then you had secondaries. You could pick your own secondaries. And then you had army specific. And then the cool little thing is that Alex, which was awesome, and Craig printed off like these little remembrancers, but printed off like 130 of them or something. And you would basically go around the battle, and if that remembrancer saw something cool, would like upload the data and shoot it up into the space. So that was like a fun element. And if you did that, you earned more campaign points, right? So it's very heavy. Like I never felt like, oh, I got to win this game because we're like in a tournament setting, right? It was always like, oh, okay, I know, and they don't know your mission, right? So your opponent doesn't know your mission. So I'm trying to accomplish this. And if they've played enough of the game, they'll figure it out. So I was able to figure out, because since Heresies dropped, I play pretty regularly, once, twice a week, plus like then we were playing a lot extra just to kind of get 2.0 under our. So, by the time I got there, I've already played 50, 60 games of, Heresy 2.0 then that weekend. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, they're trying to do kill points, or, oh, they're trying to hold that objective, But it was just great. I played, the first list I played was an Alpha Legion Loyalist. Then I played a Ultramarine player. Then I played a Loyalist Emperor's Children. Then I played on the second day another Loyalist Alpha Legion. And then I played a Salamander army. So I played 5 games for it. It was very interesting to see like what kind of meta was out there, and things that I thought weren't, and then things that I didn't think were definitely in there. Like Las Cannons is the hotness. Especially if they're
like double contemptors. Did I see that? Like there was like crazy amount of contemptors, regardless of what. And it was it multi-melta contemptors?
So there was, I would think, so for me, for example, just to give you a rundown on my list, like my list, I didn't run any contemptors. Now on the second day, And here's a little, if people haven't really checked them out, they're like under the radar really good. But so what I did is, because I was painting my buddy stuff, I didn't get to paint an army that I wanted to take, like brand new. So I reworked my word bearers a little bit. In there, I had 2 Castraferum ones. So if people are like, want something that's pretty cheap, pretty reliable, and like fire support, if you take the Castraferum with 2 las cannons and a missile launcher, and the Castraferum is the old box dreadnought, if people, you know,
or
and it's in the
even just
late,
4 las cannons. Yeah, that guy's pretty
yeah,
effective.
pretty effective and cheap.
Yep.
Mine were Multi-Melta and Chain Fist. So they wanted to get up and dance. Well, they're initiative 2. It's not that great. And then plus, as you were mentioning earlier, Dreadclaws, in my opinion, are just in this weird place. Like they neutered them. They're still kind of good, but it's like you could end up waiting for something to happen. It just doesn't hit like it should.
No.
Not
Not for the points. Definitely not for the points.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you can see there was a definite I don't want to say rollback, but a definite and a conscious effort to neuter some things and then make some things better. And they definitely took Dreadclaws and kind of beat them with the Nerf bat pretty good. But like, so in my drop list, I was Serrated Sun. So I took like, trying to remember, I think at 3,000 points, I had 4 Gal Vorback squads, just 5, literally basic. All my guys. I'm the master. Rick will tell you, I'm like the death by 1,000 like knife cuts, where I don't really upgrade my dudes. It's like Power Fist. I get the strength thing, so I keep them cheap, right? But they're just a good, solid unit. They're, in my opinion, not as good as they were in version 1, but because they don't have that invulnerable demon save anymore. And the one game where I got my leather Cheerio kind of stomped in was I played a Emperor's Children, and he had the Sun Killers, and so they take away your damage mitigation. So he was just pumping right in my Gal Vorback, and I was like, well, I'm just going to take wounds, because all they have is feel no pain. So while they are toughness 5, you can't insta kill them. You know, they're not able to stand up to las cannon.
Wow, I didn't realize Gal Vorback had lost invulnerable saves relative to last edition. Ooh, that's brutal.
And they're not fearless.
Yeah, with Sun Killers being what they are. Ooh.
Yeah, so and then doing a drop list, so I did mine all in drop pods. So I came down, and of course, Interceptor was like blap, and I was like, and now I have 2.5, like you know. And then it was like I ended up. He and I had a really good game. I shouldn't say he stopped me. It was a really good game. I took it on the chin. I lost more models, but because of the campaign points, I knew what I was playing ahead of time. I was able to adjust accordingly and kind of go after the campaign points. And he was one of the games where I lost the game but scored more campaign points than he did. So it was kind of like a weird. No, I mean, it's a good mechanism, because I had pinned him down, so he couldn't go get his objectives. So I kind of stopped him, you know, he went on secondaries and stuff like that. So overall, it was a good game, but there are some units. But I mean, I had a buddy who went there who had a World Eaters army. Went in his first game, played a guy who had 3 10-man las cannon on that. And then my buddy's like, he's like, oh, and it was funny the way he did it, because he like totally set him up. He's been playing Heresy for like years. And he goes, oh, he's like, oh, 310. He's like, yeah. He goes, he's like, yeah, last year I played 40K, and on this year I played Heresy. He's like, oh, I couldn't tell, you know, like just kind of joking. It's like, but overall, like, it was cool to see so many armies and so many variants of armies, right? Obviously, I think there was only like one Solar Ox player, but we don't have demons yet. We don't have the mortal guys yet. The regular, you know, infantry type army,
militia, and
militia. But I mean, you saw I think there was like 3 word bearers, a bunch of Ultramarine players. There was like 3 salamander armies. When do you ever see that? I played one of them. Like, when do you ever see salamanders? But you saw a lot of players self-policing. I will say then, kind of, this was a long way to answer your question, Jamie, but getting there, probably most armies were basic 2 contemptors and probably 3, and occasionally you would do it was either like 3 contemptors, like if they were kind of like a maxing guy, 3 contemptors or 2 contemptors and a Leviathan. I don't think you saw anything more than that. But I mean, it's like the whole chicken before the egg. Well, I wouldn't take these 10-man las cannons if I didn't have to face these contemptors, right? So it was a balance. But a lot of people had a lot of cool themes. One thing was really cool, just kind of for like personally for me, was playing and Jamie, you remember Ray, my buddy who managed the
Ray
Vegas.
Pedro. He's got those game stores in Vegas now, doesn't he?
Correct. So last year he had a customer, so he's there. So backstory: this guy was one of my customers when I ran GW stores at the LA Bunker. Moved to Vegas, started working for Games Workshop, left, started opening his own store, and he came down to LVO and he had one of his customers, and then one of his customers was kind of disillusioned with 40K, and I ended up talking to him for like an hour and a half. He got into 30K after that, and then I played him. So it was kind of cool. And he's like, "Man, I thank you for having that conversation with me. It's so awesome." Like, I mean, it was just kind of a cool thing to get to play him. And he had a really, really neat Alpha Legion army.
Yeah, Ray's an awesome guy because he, when he was working for GW, he ended up getting, I don't know, stationed here, but he worked here when they first opened our GW store. He was the guy that ran it for a while until they found like a permanent person. And so I kind of got to know him there. And also, he also had that incredible
Necron, yep.
Battle on Parade thing at one of the games days where I met Kyle again. I think it was the Memphis. Was the Memphis game day? Yeah. That's where we went and got barbecue. Yeah, that Necron setup is incredible, and he had been working on that Necron army while he was at the GW.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was like your first like parade, army on parade type thing, right? Yeah, it was really good.
It was so like he's an awesome.
Yeah, so he was there, and he came by again. So it's always good because I know him and his wife, and one of his sons were there. And I mean, when his sons were going to my store, they were like 2 and 3 years old.
We did. I remember his wife was pregnant. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see, how long it's been, but yeah, I mean, I think Alex has done a great job to really reshape the whole structure of the event. You're just gonna it's natural you're gonna run into harder lists, right? I think we would all agree that, but the percentage of those harder lists were maybe 10%. So if it's 7, 8, 9, 10 guys out of 76 or whatever played, they had like 92 tickets sold. But I think like 78 maybe played in it. You're talking about a handful of guys that you may randomly get up. Everyone else was super cool. Super, super cool. And then like the guy who was Ultramarines was from California, and he lived like a block where I used to live when I was managing Ontario. And we knew like all these people, but we had never met before. It was kind of cool. So, even the conversations were good with people. But he was probably like one of the most, I don't want to say like gamey lists, but he had like every special unit of the Ultramarines, which was quite the adventure. But, like everything else was pretty, all my buddies who played 40K the year before and had a miserable time, absolute miserable time. They were like, "This is so awesome. We want to go back next year." Like it was like night and day for them, right? Because they're like, everyone was super cool. Because that's the one thing they noticed the year before. They would come into my room because their games would be over in like 40 minutes, or because it was like the other person just either stomped them off the table or they stomped them off the table. And they're like, everyone's always laughing and having a good time and just like chilling, and like talking about like, "Oh, why'd you do this to your commander?" Or "Why'd you pick this army? Why'd you go?" And he goes, they're like, you're throwing models down and you're in a bar fight. And then afterwards, you don't want to talk to that person anymore. And they go, so they came and had an awesome time. And then my buddy who I brought, his name's Brian Shaw. You can look him up on the internet. He's won like 35 Golden Demons. Amazing painted. He won best hobby with his custodes. So it was a good event. And then on Sunday, again, I'm not a mega battle person at all. I brought down my my ZM board that I had finished, which was a 4x6 ZM. Threw it down. That's how I met your buddy from Alabama. He played
Yeah,
on. He was a Raven Guard player.
Yeah, he was texting me. He's like, dude, I don't get ZM. Like, I got destroyed in that game, and because like basically I just didn't know the rule.
Well, he was going against so ZM. We had really, oh man, we were drinking and having a good time when we were playing. So we started up after they had started the mega battle. I brought it down. We had set it up because we were just like, hey, we're just gonna hang out. I had just finished this board. We're gonna sit down and just have a good time. And then Alex is like, check it out. So I have these like objective markers. My buddy makes these like little console things, like 3D prints them, and then they have like flashing lights, and they're really cool. And I'm totally blanking on the name of the company, so I'm a total a-hole for that. But he goes, you mind if I put these on your board, and then you guys get them, and then you can, like, if you're a bad guy, you can shoot shots down, or if you're a good guy, you can shoot shots down to the battlefield. And then he put like a different one where if you activate it, you can like basically vent out the battleship in that section. So everyone would have to take an initiative test if you failed to get sucked out into space. So it was kind of fun, but you had to roll the act, and that's what I'm talking about. Like the event, he just came up with that off the top of his head. You know, maybe he's done it at another event or something. We were like, yeah, well, sure, we're doing that. And I was playing with my word bearers, and I got on one command. I just kept hitting that red button, and I was just launching shots down, and they were doing volcano shots down, and like we shot down, we knocked Dorn out of his Spartan, shot his wheels out from underneath him, you know, and just like, and people were like, what are you guys come here late, you set up a board, you're not playing, and now you're just shooting volcano shots down onto the planet.
We've had we've had stuff like that at Dipticon where we'd have like an apocalypse cam going like off the side, and then like we were doing like basically they would come over like, hey man, roll a dice. We're like, well, what are we doing? And it'd be like, well, your Titan there is gonna misshoot and it's gonna end up wiping out like these tables over here that we're playing on.
Yeah,
yeah.
The good guys won, and then like because custodes are awesome in ZM. On the field, they're all right. In ZM, they move fast. They have all that stuff. And my ZM board has like, I built it more for Necromunda, but it has a lot of like line blocking terrain plus the walls and stuff. So they're pretty protected. And then they get up and they just like
they have to
open a can of whoop. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the coolest thing that happened out of probably the whole weekend is I had a tainted mace on my chaplain, and I hit. I always forget the name of the dang one, but he's the one with the las cannon on the end of his spear, the custode contemptor. I hit him and cops 3 murder strikes, and he only saved 1, and then I rolled 2, and so I killed it. I was like, oh my god, I quit. I am done for the rest of the weekend. I've killed you with, the tainted mace, which was really cool. And then he prompted to just smash me. And then Craig, one of the other guys, was on our side. One of the other guys was running the event, and then he was running there was on Sunday, but and this is one thing that made my heart happy, and this is going to come off really wrong, but I don't want it to be that way, is that they had a competitive because people quote unquote asked for it, and there were 6 players in it.
Yep.
Right. So
that's what Alex told us. Is like they had a bunch of slots because people were asking for it. They had it, and like 6 people showed up.
Yeah, 6 people were there. It was a small, and hey, they had rock hard lists, and they punched each other in the face, but it was like no one cared. That was like you still had, and there was other people who had signed up to play in the mega battle who didn't play in the event, so they probably had same number, 70 plus players around there. But yeah, it's a good run event. There, the one thing I always, especially when I worked at Battle Foam, I always joke like you can't meet a bad Canadian. They're always so super nice, and Craig and Alex are awesome. They talk to you about the hobby. They're like genuine. They're not just like, oh yeah, you did that. Okay, cool. And then they like walk away, right? They're just good, salt of the earth people running a good event. Everyone's happy. No one complained. Like it ran smoothly. So if you want to like dip your toe in and maybe not go at Adepticon as your first one, which I will say Adepticon's awesome. If you can get tickets and get in there, it's a good time. Right.
Yeah.
LVO's the same thing, and you don't, if you're like not scared of Vegas, like you don't have to go on the strip if you don't want to. Literally, these giant casinos have everything, right? You can have, food, whatever you want. They have it all in there. And it's just a good time. And you get to meet like-minded people. Again, didn't see crazy lists. Like I said, the metas were fun to like check out and see like, okay, and then talk to them like, oh, why did, and like every time I talked to someone who had a bunch of las cannons, I would always ask them like, oh, well, why'd you take, a 10-man? They're like, man, all these contemptors out here. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I get it. I thought I was gonna not do well with drop pods because like in my meta area, like people take the auger scanners and you just get
Water.
chewed up.
Yeah.
Or I mean, my serrated sun does well because when you're dropping down those Galvorback, they're tough. They can take a little bit more punishment. But a lot of people didn't have that there because they don't. They're like, I played the Alpha League, a couple Alpha Leagues. They're like, I've never seen anyone take any drop pods, right? I just haven't seen it, and that's kind of why I took it. I'm like, maybe I'll catch people who haven't seen it. But the armies that I struggled with were the ones that were geared to shooting and were more experienced players. So they're, I'm going to shoot this, take down this. But I want to say, because the first game I played with the Loyalist Alpha Legion had a Contemptor and a Leviathan. The second game I played, guy had 2 Contemptors. Third game I played, 2 Contemptors. The fourth game, the Alpha Legion Loyalists, no Contemptors at all. Fifth game, 2 Contemptors. And yes, mostly it's weird. Like multi-meltas probably because they're that good mid-range, right? And you get the rerolls, and it's like that 24-inch like little box of depth that they can create. But ones that I saw working really well too was Twin Las Cannon. Were working really good. It's like a fire support.
Yeah. Did LVO have like, I know with Adepticon they have like a big trade hall. Does LVO have that?
Oh yeah. So it's funny, like talk about like connections and stuff. It was so with like Alex and Craig, they were talking to me. They're like, I'm like, oh, you were just like BS and like, oh, I was like, what's your favorite booth or what are you looking to see in like the vendor? And they're like, oh, the Pro Acroll from Monument Hobbies. They're like, yeah, but that line's so big. I was like, oh, well, what do you need? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I used to work for the guy who owns it. He used to work at GW. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's. So like after a game, we went over there, and I was like, oh, here you go. So they bought like a bunch of stuff and got them like all hooked up, and they have a massive haul, right? I mean, it's pretty good. It's nowhere near Adepticon. Adepticon, that's like, I mean, even I worked it back in the day, right? I mean, it's just banana lands.
No, I know. I'd have to end up. I ended up running you and Rick like food and drink because like y'all are so busy. So
yeah, it's crazy in there because I mean, let's just say Balfoam when I worked and that was years ago would make big time dollars out of there. And you have this one isn't as big. Like Frontline Gaming has like their store, but they have like GW's got a big section in there with like a lot of limited stuff you can't get. And probably the same thing at Adepticon. They had the books and the limited edition models. There was Privateer Press was there. They had a booth. Conquest had a booth. Vallejo had their their new speed painting paints. Also, Army Painter had a booth there. Like, so there's big major ones that
the
are
big
there.
names. So like,
yeah. And it's a pretty good sized hall. I would say in comparison, and I haven't been to Adepticon, I'd probably say it's like maybe a third of the size.
Okay.
Like vendor wise.
Like the Adepticon ones, it was big enough. And then one thing we always hated, it was kind of like in the middle between the Fantasy Flight, like X-Wing stuff and Legion. And then on the other side would be like all the 40K stuff. And like, because of where they situate the vendor hall closes pretty early. They would like close the other 2 halls too because they were having to close the vendor hall in the middle.
Yeah, the vendor hall was open till 9 every night. So like on the first night, so here's the funny, like a little Rick and Romeo story. So we have like a chat where we like text each other, and it was the really like come and see the new thing, which ended up being this Cerberus tank. So me and my buddies may have been enjoying Vegas too much and drinking and stuff. And I'm like, yo, we don't have to be there till 10 o'clock, guys. We're cool, man. Like, we're just like getting drunk and having a good old time. And then we go walk into the hall and everyone's coming out right. I think we missed it because we're like, we got there at like 9:15. I'm like, let's just get there early because the year before we were like way up front. And then they're like, I think like all the people are coming out, and my one buddy bro goes, "Bro, I think we missed it." I was like, "No, we didn't. Get out. Maybe they're doing some other thing. Maybe it's like Legion or whatever, And then he pulls it and goes, "What time did you say it?" I said 10 p.m. He goes, "Yeah, that's when they're going to show the video." I was like, so we completely missed it. Like, and it was all my bad. So, but it has the same things of the Adepticon, just smaller.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Same size, probably like Nova.
Okay. Well, does anybody else have any questions for Kyle? I know I've kind of monopolized tonight, but
No, it's been good to have him on. I
It has
think
been.
the only thing that we missed for tonight was talking about the last 2 weeks of GW announcements, which boil down to
No
we put out-
more Legion Contemptors.
Yeah,
Only Legion specific bodies.
Yeah, we're discontinuing the Legion Contemptor kits and putting those as upgrades for the plastic. And, here's some melee weapon profiles for the Demon Assassin that we gave you the silhouette of for New Year's. Still no announcement on what army book he's going to be in or when you can see him on.
and
And
also
heads.
and heads, and don't forget the jet bikes that we've
yep.
released, but you can't have them because nobody got them.
Yep. That's right. We did get, so there's 2 separate packs of bear heads or hero heads, I think is officially marketing them as. But yeah. So other than those, though, any last news before we head out the door?
Yes. Somehow we have made it 33 episodes. And I want to say kudos to everyone for continually doing this every Sunday night. I don't know how we've all actually managed this when we were originally planning on doing it like twice a month.
Yeah.
But we have.
Yeah, definitely moved very quickly from a bi-weekly show to a approximately show. I gotta go through my archives and figure out when we're about to hit 1 year, but that's coming up quicker than we expect. So,
Yep.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining me for this episode. Once again, I have been Jacob, and this episode I was joined by
Duncan.
John.
Jamie.
Kyle.
and we're glad that we had you with us. We'll catch you
Awesome.
next
Thanks
time.
for having me on.